Hello and welcome to Narrabri Shire Council Small Business Month. Today we are joined by Fing of House PADDOCK Training and Consulting for today's Time Management, Organisation and Productivity workshop. Good morning, Beck.
Hello, Julie. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we are so glad to have you here today. We are very pleased to host these events as part of New South Wales Small Business Month. This event is a collaboration of Narrabri Shire Council, Narrabri District Chamber of Commerce, Wee Warren District Chamber of Commerce, Roggabri Business Chamber and the Narrabri Industrial Network. So thank you, Beck. I'm going to hand over to you now and enjoy today's workshop, everybody.
Thank you, Julie, so much for having me. And thank you to the incredible suite of businesses from the Narrabri area and surrounds for the invitation and opportunity to talk about something that I'm really keen on talking about and have spent a fair bit of time talking about over the last few months. We've got a couple of hours together. Hopefully, you would have received on email from Julie a worksheet that looks like this. So we are going to, so you don't have to put up with me talking straight for 2 hours, which anyone who knows me well knows I can do that. I'm going to ask you to print this out, and then we're going to take some time throughout the session to actually take some of the concepts and ideas that we talk about and put them on paper. So while I'm doing some intros and having a bit of a chat, Julie is going to put on email for anyone who's only just registered this morning so check your emails. If you did receive this on email, by all means, pop it on the printer if you can. And if not, you might just be able to have it as reference because we'll ask some of the questions in that worksheet. My name, as Julie said, is Beck Fing, and I am a work health and safety, HR and strategic business consultant based up in Gundawindi. And you're probably wondering what the hell that has to do with time management and organisation. Majority of the people I work with are women in regional areas, and as a work health and safety and HR consultant into agriculture, I found that majority of my clients were women. And what I also found was as I went into those businesses, I was really nervous for the operators that if I put anything else on their plate, they may well topple. Can I just ask at this point, Julie, if we've already pressed record? I'm just a bit conscious that we get halfway through and Julie might have that covered at her, but just a bit of a reminder, because if anyone's missed this, we'll have it on a recording for you. Anyway, back to why the hell I'm talking about this. What I realised also as we got into business strategy and planning was that one of the biggest drawbacks I saw in business was not necessarily the business management, but the management of the individuals within the business, and that there wasn't necessarily a lot of self-management, which also made it difficult. Well, people can't manage themselves to manage others. So that's why we went on a journey of professional development, of learning, of research around time management and organisation for business owners and managers and supervisors, so they could first manage themselves before they could manage others. In saying that, I'm also a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a Susie homemaker, come gardener, come side hustler, which I think is code for when your hobby gets a little bit out of control and you end up offloading it to other people. So I also understand the importance of understanding time management. We have an amazing team as part of House PADDOCK, and we really all love getting in and using our time most effectively in the workplace so we can enjoy some of the other things that are important to us as well. So that's a little bit about me and a little bit about why I'm here and why I guess Narrabri Shire Council and the rest of the amazing organisations gave me the opportunity to chat to you today. The other thing I wanted to make a note is absolutely we've done lots of upskilling and lots of study and lots of research in the space of time management, productivity and organisation. But we've also shared this content with about 1,500 people across the last 5 years. And as a result, a lot of the information that I share today is very much the learnings and incredible ideas of others. So this is where we met a lady out at Dirranbandi that had 2 sets of twins under 18 months, and a lady at Rowena that just doing the most incredible things, even just the simplest of things right down to across the breadth of New South Wales and Queensland. So a lot of the learnings that I will share with you today are not necessarily my own. A lot of them I've actually taken on board and to improve the richness of my own life, but they're learnings and discoveries of others. So a little bit of credit where it's due there. I'm really keen to hear who's on the line. So we have 27 participants. I am going to spend the next 2 hours talking to myself because I'm the only one with the video on, and which is a little bit off-putting, and so I can't judge if you're listening, if you've shut down. So I'm happy. We're going to use the Q&A box, which I wonder if Jilly might be able to pop a question in for us, or actually even if there's let's go with the chat box team, and I'm going to put a question in there, which is, I'm interested in your name. Your first name is fine, and why you are here. There you go, team. Hopefully a chat box has popped up on your screen, and you can look at that. The whole 27, we've got 27 names and 27 reasons why people are here while I go through a little bit of housekeeping. So don't be afraid. We're keen to know. Great. Hey, Bryony. And Bryony's time management needs work. Throughout the course of this workshop, to make it not so much chalk and talk and not so much me banging on at you, I would really love us to use the chat box to communicate. The way that the forum has been set up, I'm the only one on camera, but I'm really keen to hear some of the ideas of in learning. So by all means, if we can use that chat box to make it interactive, when I say that we're going to take a little bit of time and have a look at a question, I'd love you to share your learning and reflection in the chat box at that point too. So what we are doing is trying to make an interactive session out of a very uninteractive platform. Is that okay? Is that a fair ask? Amy spreads herself too thin. I love that. And Matt's here to learn about better time management. Lucy, thank you, Lucy, for being a repeat offender. I love that. Yeah, and Reggie Buchanan, Stacey Storia, they're all, maybe my tips don't work because they're back for some more. And Julie, thank you for having us. So Jenny, lots of awesome, lots of familiar names there, but also lots of new ones. So let's make a bit of a start. I do think that we can come off mute and ask a question. I'm pretty confident in the webinar platform. We're just different between the way the platform has been set up. What we are going to do is we're going to take about an hour and we're going to have a 2-minute personal break, which if anyone would like to, so we're just going to go offline for a couple of minutes and then take the other best part of the other hour and make sure there's plenty of time at the end to ask questions and get some information about where to from here. Julie has put a survey up at the end. This event has been made possible by the amazing organisations that we referred to before, and they want some feedback. Was it worth the investment of your time? Was it worth the investment of their money? Lots of time management for business. Hello Sal Pool, opportunities and upskilling, always learn with an open mind. I love it. Pointers on how to improve time management, need to get back on track with my time. Yeah, awesome. First time offender. I love a good first time offender. There's lots and lots of interest there. Well, look, good news, team. Everyone's on the right webinar at this point. So we are going to have a look at some of the things that you are hoping for. So what are we actually going to cover across the course of the next couple of hours? Really get an idea and a definition of what time management actually is. We're keen on understanding a little bit of theory and a little bit of whether or not it can be learned or can't be learned. Also, where should you spend your time? And I think this is something that we overlook. Also keen on where you actually do spend your time. And then once we've got a handle on that, where we're at, who's who in the zoo, we can have a think about planning and the value of planning. But then also the real key here is that around how we can improve efficiency. So hopefully, I didn't say improve time management up there, and there's a very good reason, which anyone who has done anything like this with me before would probably know. My absolute key groundbreaking piece of information around why I haven't put improved time management up there. You'll know in a moment. So just by way of definition, what is time management? Time management is our ability as an individual, a business owner, a manager, an employee to meet and manage competing commitments. Also in that is on or before the required time, so if we're governed by deadlines, but also to the required standard. I'm going to talk a little bit about perfectionism and standards a little bit later on. But what time management really is that combination of working effectively and efficiently in terms of time, of cost, and of quality of the work and the outputs. The other thing which is really important here, and majority of the participants on the line are women, which apologies to the couple of blokes because this stuff is still very particularly relevant, but it's also about achieving that balance and also being cognizant of our mental and physical health and well-being. And this is something that when we do find ourselves, and there was some language used there about being spread too thin and prioritising your own life and keeping everything on track, where we might be doing this. And I hope that I'm going to use my pointer and make the assumption that people can see the slides, and I apologise if you can't. When we are talking about managing time, it's okay to be meeting every deadline that's set and being known to be the perfectionist. But if underneath or in the background, it is at the ultimate cost of your mental and physical health and well-being with absolutely no balance, what's it all for? So at the end of the day, for me, one of the most critical parts, and this is probably through maturity of my knowledge and learning in time management, I used to be all about, yep, I'm nailing it, deadline, deadline, deadline. And you get to the end and you'd be like a dry bent twig about to snap. And what is it all for? So when we get to the end of where we're going, what do we need to have intact? I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. I do have that light bulb moment that I mentioned to you. Keep up with my workload, massive hours. There has to be an easy way. There's some really good stuff. I get a little bit distracted by the chat because I really want to read it and chat about it, but I'm going to talk for a minute and then I'm going to go back to some of that stuff. So don't think that I'll miss your comments, and Jilly will be able to download that transcript for us too. What was I saying? See, I told you I get off track here, get distracted. My light bulb moment. There is no such thing as good time management. I'll never forget arriving at a workshop that was advertised to improve efficiency and productivity, and we rolled in. It was about 5 or 6 years ago, and there were 20 women in the room. We went around and everyone was, what we're there for, time management, time management, time management, time management. And the facilitator said, got some really bad news for everyone. There's no such thing as good time management. And we were like, what are we here for? And the reality, and it has been an absolute game-changing light bulb for me, is this, that absolutely there is no such thing as good time management. What good time management is good self-management. And it's at this point that we really acknowledge that there is 168 hours in every week. If I asked in a workshop environment where I could see you and you could nod or smile, you would have a very blank look on your face if I said, what is the significance of the number 168? And those who, yeah, absolutely have worked with me before would be going, yeah, we know exactly what it is. Majority of the rest of the world don't. We talk 24/7, we talk 365, but we do not talk about 168, even though our cyclical world operates in weeks. So what does that mean to you? It means that if we have a think about the time that is available to us, we have a think about how many hours we work. And for some, we're talking about massive hours. We're talking about spreading ourselves too thin. We can talk about balance and our sleep hygiene and time dedicated to our own mental health and well-being. And then we can talk about the hours that are left. Okay, but irrespective of how we're spending them, the reality is we usually have a level of autonomy and control over them. And we have a choice to use them well, or we have a choice to use them badly. Either way, they pass. We don't get them back. We can't press pause. We can't press repeat. And even though someone thinks that the time rushes by, for someone else it's going slowly when it all goes at the same rate. So maybe my first take home out of this session today is to acknowledge that there isn't any such thing as good time management. And what it comes to is our ability to manage the way we utilize our resources. So the time that's available to us, our energy, it might necessarily, I'm going to even talk, when we talk about delegation, I'm going to say your money and where we are putting the resources that are available to us, acknowledging that, and sometimes we need an element of growth. I'm going to talk a little bit around things like dropping excuses and dropping labels. And there's always someone who can't afford the time or wishes they could do something different or considers you to be lucky because you can exercise every day. In reality, we all have those choices available to us, okay? I'd love at this point to be able to say, does that make sense? But I don't know if it makes sense to you. I hope you can see it. Anyone want to give me a little thumbs up in the chat box if that resonates with you as a bit of a, yeah, right, fair call. It's actually about how I choose to use this time. We've had a little smile there from Lucy Faithful, 100%. Yeah, good job. It is so true, team. So absolutely. So this isn't about a big old pat on the back, create some balance. This is about, no, take control. Stop with the excuses and put some systems in place, do some planning, understand where you're spending your time, and then make some choices. I'm going to talk about discipline and motivation as well and where they fit into it, like we're waiting to be motivated. That sucker lets you down every time. I'm going to park that and come back to it. Yeah, lots of little smiles in there to suggest that maybe we're a little bit on track. And you know, when I said in the opening earlier slide, where should we be spending our time? And I think this is about really having a think about the things that are critically important to us. So what I mean by this is it's really important that we have a clear vision for our life and we have a handle on our legacy. If you fast forwarded 5, 10, 15 years, and it might be that it might be a 50th birthday, your 80th birthday, a retirement speech. What do you want to be known for? Let's go forward, hopefully a few more years, and say that someone's reading your eulogy. What is it that you want to be known for? And if you have a think about it, what is it that you're doing with your time, with 168 hours allocated to you every day towards that? And this is where we also talk about our goals. So we talk about, and I love this image and I use it across a whole suite of different disciplines. It's one of my HR tools that I've been able to adapt. But if you think about your life as a roadmap, we've got ourselves a direction where we're headed. And don't get me wrong, usually we'll be on a series of concurrent roads. So what does that mean? If we're going to see this as it could be that we're going to put our goals up here. You might be on 5 or 6 parallel roads at any one time. You're trying to raise a family. You're trying to run a business. You're trying to stay fit and healthy. And at the end of the day, we've got 168 bricks every week that we can distribute amongst these paths and get rubber on our roads, okay? But what it needs is some sort of boundaries and some sort of guide rails to know that where the wastage is, where we're allocating time, energy, resources that are outside the things that are critically important to us, okay? So if you think about it, our vision and our legacy is really around is a destination and where we're hoping to head. Our goals are that whole roadmap as a whole. I'm going to talk about values in a moment and how important they are, because what they can do is act as a compass or the guide rails, if you will, to help keep us on track and choose where we use our resources. The other thing, if we're going to talk about the journey, the bus, the bricklaying, our networks and the village that we surround ourselves with, it might be our co-workers, it might be our family, our friends, hell, our cleaning lady, they're our passengers, but what they can also be is additional bricklayers. So the concept of delegation, which is a favourite of mine, is really about getting someone else to give you a hand to lay bricks to get to where you're headed by way of destination at a faster rate. I'm going to talk about use of your time and where you can most efficiently use your time. So let's have a think about our vision and our values. I mentioned that our vision is where you're going, where you'd like to be, what you'd like to be known for. And our values are those words that we want to be known for. So they're character strengths. They might be things like integrity. They might be quality. They might be that you want to be known for efficiency. You're known for family. You're known for community. By having a really solid handle on our values, what we can actually do is put front and centre the things that are most important to us. And you're probably wondering at this point, what the hell is this crazy woman talking about? And what has this got to do with time management? When at the end of the day, until we know where we want to categorically put our time and what resources we would like to allocate to the different parts of our lives, it's really, really difficult to decide where we're going to use it. Does that make sense? So it's at this point that we really need to go back a step, and I'm going to talk about goal setting in a minute as well. And people say, oh, I don't want to know any about that values rubbish or that goal setting rubbish. I just want to know about time management. But until we have clarity on this roadmap, it's really difficult to efficiently lay bricks. Does that make sense? Okay, so what I'm keen, and look, in your worksheet, this is just by way of taking the time. We're going to step through a couple of little exercises as we go. I'm really keen I'm going to put up a list of words, and your words may not be on here. You may well, I don't know if anyone wants to suggest in the chat box if they've ever mapped their values, but I'm interested in what your core values are. If I ask the things that are so critically important to you, I'm interested in the things that you'd really fight for, the things that you'd down tools for in an instant. And look, it might be some of these things. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not a conclusive list. It's a list that I put up that I could get, that would be easy for you to have a quick squiz over. There's things like community on there. I don't actually think family's on there when it really should be. Fun. Is it that friendships are one of your core values? Is it productivity? Is it profitability? Is it the environment? Is it around, could be an interpersonal sort of trait such as respect, honesty, fairness? What are the things that you would like to be known for? There's a box, the top box on the worksheet is an opportunity for you to jot that in. If you don't have the worksheet, simply write on a scrap of paper 3 to 5 words that you would like to be known for, that you would consider your core values. Give you a minute to do that, and I'm going to have a look at the chat box while you do it. Lots of nice familiar little faces in there. Oh, we've got, make sure that, Andrea, we talk about saying yes. Yeah, and there's another lady was talking about spreading herself too thin as well. Yeah, awesome. We'll make sure that we cover off on the concept of saying yes. I'm happy if anyone wants to share anything in the chat box by way of their values. It might be 3 or 4 things that really do, hopefully, and I'm going to change the slide for a moment, hopefully form up part of these guide rails. Because when we talk about saying yes, I'm going to talk in a moment about where we can spend our time, and having a strong handle of our values and having them at the real forefront of our life and our decisions will also give you some real clarity of what we say yes and no to. And I can give you some really pertinent examples of where we've seen people that have gone, actually, that's a really nice reminder. Here I am, my family's my top priority, but they're not necessarily getting the best of either my time or my energy. And, or here I am saying that my community is important to me and I don't do anything in the community, or my health and fitness is important, and if I look at my 168 hours, I was flat out cooking myself a nutritional meal. So this is where we do, and I think a big part of this is the fact that a lot of people, I'm going to say especially people who are business owners, so have complete autonomy over their time, they pride themselves on not having structure and not being told or made to do anything in particular. And as a result, a lot of the efficiency is lost. So we're going to talk about structure and planning and putting that structure back in place that you have complete control over, but what that can do to your efficiency. The other part of the puzzle here, which is around providing clarity of where we're going to put our time and answering that question of where we use our time, is really understanding if we have some goals. And look, there's one thing to set some goals, and I could talk, and people have heard me talk for a day about goals. I love talking about goal setting. A lot of us have goals, directly or indirectly. What most of us don't have is the associated plan or strategy to reach them. The other thing that happens is that the goals, if they are set, they're not necessarily strongly enough aligned to your core values. So you're not really willing to make enough sacrifices to reach them. They're not held in high enough priority, and quite often they will be, or part of the strategy will be sacrificed for some other reason. The other thing that we find often happens with our goals are that they're not smart. And when I say smart, I'm talking SMART. If you've ever done, might be a funding grant or done some work in business strategy, you may have tested a goal in the past and determined whether or not it was smart. So this is firstly asking if it's specific enough. So improved health is not a SMART goal because it's not specific, and what it's also not is measurable. So if it's specific enough, it's detailed to the point where you can understand and get to a point where you can decide if you've reached it or not. Is it specific, and can you get to the end and go, yeah, absolutely, categorically kick the lights out? And also we're going to talk about measurement again in a moment, because any of us that are in our own businesses or contributing to a business knows that it's really difficult to manage what we cannot measure. So to that end, is it measurable? What does success look like, and what are the indicators of that success? Is it attainable? And there's a lot of schools of thought out there around goals that are very, very ambitious, and depending on your ability to strategize against them, we don't want to set ourselves up for failure, but we also do want to push ourselves just enough so the sense of achievement and fulfillment at the end is real enough. Are they relevant? Do they align to your values enough? But also, I say at this point, I have 3 small children, well, primary school age. No, I've got a high schooler. I have 2 primary school age children and a high schooler. Some of the things that were relevant 15 years ago aren't particularly relevant now. And similarly, things that are relevant now won't necessarily be particularly relevant in 15 years, or the relevance will change. So while a goal might be right, it mightn't be right now. Okay, so it's really important. And when we start talking more categorically about where we're going to put our time, having a strong handle on our goals, we can really talk about the strategy and resources we need. The other thing is, I made the comment that while I've got that roadmap, we may well be on concurrent roadmaps. So we're not necessarily always just on the one goal. We might be on a goal of a financial target. It might be that you want an investment property. It might be that you want to run a half marathon. Clearly not a goal of mine at the moment, the COVID kilos. It might be that you would like to become a great photographer. It might be that you'd like to be a great cake decorator. I'm not entirely sure what the concurrent goals are. It might be that you'd like to raise your family and be a proud parent at the end of the day. So what does that look like, and is it smart? And I think also when we talk about strategies, we're going to talk about our willingness to follow the strategy when motivation has evaded us and we're relying on discipline. Okay, and this is where this stuff becomes important, because if the goal is smart and it is strongly enough aligned to our values and our direction and our vision, the thing that we have to do, even the crap bits, to get the goal done, we'll be willing to do. I loved a story that Chiria Pitt told in an interview I was listening to on a podcast a few months ago, and it was one of those sort of goosebump moments, and she was talking about making sure that there is that really strong alignment of your goals to your values, and how that will allow you to allocate resources accordingly. What am I talking about here? she asked this lady who was a parent on the interview, she said, if I said to you, and I'm going to misquote this, but I'll get the big picture right, so apologies to you, Charia, I think you're incredible. She said, if I asked you if you were willing to run an ultra marathon in 3 months' time, and the prize at the end of the day was $5. The lady who she was interviewing went, yeah, right. She said, it's not going to happen. I just can't. I don't have the time, and just went, the excuses rolled. And then she stopped and said, well, hang on. If I said to you that in 3 months' time, there's an ultramarathon, and if you don't run it, you won't see your children again. And this woman's, the colour drained out of her face, and she said, absolutely, I'm there. And I'm going to guess that in terms of her snoozing an alarm, not being, I can't find a trainer, I'm remote, I'm thinking rain, hail or shine, whatever the strategy is to put in place, that lady would have met it, because it was strongly enough held to her values. So men or women, it doesn't matter. Have a really strong handle on the things that are important. And why this is what I'm going on about all this is because when we start talking about mapping our time, we want the things that are important to show up in 168 hours. Just quickly, by way of a strategy. Did you like that story? I like that story. I think it's pretty cool. By way of a strategy, we have to understand what resources are required to get the goal done. And this is part of testing whether or not it's smart. Do you have the resources to get the job done? And I'm talking here time, money, bricks and mortar, equipment, whatever it might be, skills, or could you acquire them? Can you mount them? Sometimes mounting the resources or the skills is not the smart thing. I'll give you a perfect example in my business. I used to muck around with a Word document trying to do a flyer. Okay, and it would be crap, like first class crap. So now you know what I do? I stick with what I'm good at, and he's a graphic designer. Similarly, I tried to build my own website. Don't. Stick with what you're good at, and you can outsource a part of your goal. Okay, this is where we're talking about getting someone to lay some bricks for you. And if you think about it, I know what I can make doing the thing I love and that I'm good at. I know what it costs me to pay a graphic designer. It's actually not a great use of my time and resources. Okay, for me to take the time out and try to research how to build a website. Don't get me wrong, if a master's is your goal, outsourcing your assessment tasks, maybe not quite appropriate, but do you have to do every part of the strategy yourself? Or are you better utilised sticking with what you're good at and actually delegating and outsourcing some of the other things? But also the concept of reverse engineering. Actually, Jilly, can you send Jilly's? I'm going to talk to Jilly on the side here. Could you send me an email to send through a reverse engineering example? And on the email, we're going to put forward an example of a goal that has been reverse engineered. And what it does is it takes a big picture goal and it takes it back to what you can do, what you need to do in the one, if it's a 2-year goal, in 18 months, 2 years, 6 months, 1 month, 1 week, and today. And the question is, if you cannot take a goal and reverse engineer it to the point where you have a strategy, which is simply by taking the goal and asking yourself, how do I do that? How do I do that? How do I do that? If you can't do that, chances are the goal isn't smart for a start. But also the question is, when you get to the fact that the goal is an ultra marathon, and then once we get to the point where we can't actually ask ourselves, how do I do that? So we've bought new joggers and we've got a personal trainer, we've got a nutrition plan, and we get to the point where we're following a nutrition plan, how do I do that? Or following the exercise plan, I set an alarm, 4 a.m. The question is, are you willing to do that? Because in reality, the daily tasks that contribute to your greater goal become the steps, the bricks, the stepping stones to get to where you're at, okay? And if we're not willing to take the step in the short term to get to the longer term goal, chances of us reaching it is slim. And this is where, if we do have our goals that are strongly enough aligned to our values, or something that is connected enough and resonates enough with us, setting the alarm will be easy, okay? And the thing, do it, whatever the thing it is. It might be that you want to write a book. Okay, how do I do that? How do I do that? Okay, we're writing 500 words a day. Are you willing to do the thing? Are you resourced to do the thing? Okay, so a little bit difficult to, thank you, Jilly, a little bit difficult for to explain in this environment. I love near whiteboard, but hopefully an indication of making sure, particularly for a big picture person, to have a look at what it looks like in the long term, but absolutely keeping it out there at length is not necessarily enough. We need to come back and make sure that we're contributing to it every day. And it might be that it's an investment property is the goal, which today means you can't afford to buy a coffee or a takeaway. But if you're not willing to stop buying the takeaways and the coffee, it might be an investment property. Okay, does that make sense? So it's about our willingness to contribute. And I think this is where we're going to get into the conversation about improving our efficiency and laying effective and efficient bricks. What I'd love you to do just quickly is take a couple of minutes in your notes, and I'm interested in you just reflecting for a moment on 2 goals that are in line with your values, 2 that are short-term and 2 that are long-term. It could be paint your bathroom. It could well be, I don't know, financial security. It might be acquiring a business, or, you know, reaching a certain debt to equity ratio in your business. It might be something around health and fitness. It might be that, you know, increased balance might actually be something that you're interested in. Not a particularly smart goal because we can't measure it. So that goal might be to spend, you know, improve sleep hygiene to get 7 hours sleep a day, have a couple of targets around nutrition, and a couple of, you know, spend 3 to 5 hours a week doing something you're really passionate about. Okay, because that would increase your balance. Might be meditate and be mindful every day. It might be showing gratitude every day. We need to be able to articulate our goals and bring it back to the point where there's something we can do today. How's everyone going with that? Because this is probably what you're starting to wonder is, I didn't sign up to talk about this stuff. I signed up to get some tips on how to manage our time. Unless we have a handle on where it should be spent and where we would ideally like it to be spent, it's impossible for us to manage it. So that's why I always start a conversation about time management, about putting the things that are important front and center, and making sure we've got ourselves some goals, like business, personal. And if you think about it, if you're here to glean some information and knowledge to share it with your team around time management, does your business have a goal? Are they SMART goals? Are they goals that are resourced? Are they goals that you won't negotiate? And to that end, then we can start saying, absolutely, let's get a plan and a strategy. Anyone got any questions or comments on that stuff? Anyone want to be brave enough to put anything in the chat box? And we ended up with 28 people online, which is absolutely fabulous. No, if there's no questions on that, what about, can I ask if anyone sees value in that component of the conversation? There you go. And if no one says yes, I'm going to be really nervous. Yes. Good job, Jilly. Yes. Bryony Sinclair, thank you. Okay, that's enough. 2 people's plenty. No. But I always worry because when people say, oh, I can't be bothered worrying about that. No, that is the most important thing. That makes the planning easy. That makes the strategizing easy. That makes the discipline easy. Okay? That makes saying no easy. So I'm going to go back and make that comment now. If there is anything that you're doing in your life that does not fit into one of 3 categories, actually one of 2 categories, we're going to start saying no to it. So there are 3 ways that you can spend your time. It can be being productive. You really want to clarify here what being productive is. If one of your concurrent roadmaps is family orientated, about raising healthy children, if it's about contributing to the community, if it's about one of your roadmaps is around running an effective business or being an effective employee, anything that you're doing that is work related is productive. it fits into category 1. Anything, if you think about, say, family, and often working with regional women, we always hear, I waste 10 hours a week in the car driving between the place to town and events and activities. It's wasted time. Well, if you really think about it, wind it back, it's contributing to a goal of raising your family in line with your values. So unfortunately, it's actually one of, can I swear, Julie, one of the shit bits of your goal in line with your values. So really, it's not categorized as wasted. Are you with me? So that's the first way we can spend our time. So that for me is, just a minute, I'm going to go back here, team. That is firmly in here, okay? So anything that you do that is in line with your values and in line with your goals, and you know what, team? Say yes to that stuff. You can make time for that stuff. You can't make it, can't find it. We allocate it. We can allocate time to that stuff. There's 2 other categories that we can look at. I'm going to go number 3, and that is the wastage. I would need to clarify here wastage. For me, this is my wastage. It's a nice Mimco phone cover, which houses a product that Apple made so addictive that it now has tools to lock you out of it. It also has tools on a Sunday morning when you're enjoying maybe a bit of an aimless scroll to show you how crap you are at managing it, okay? So for me, this is my time waster. All people have different time wasters. It might be that you find yourself sitting aimlessly on the corner of the couch watching something with your head on the side going, why am I watching this crap? It might be a conversation with someone that you wasn't fulfilling, you didn't enjoy it, okay? Work out where you waste time. It might be reshuffling paper and procrastinating. I'm going to park that for a minute and come back to it. The other way we can spend our time, and anyone who's heard, anyone who has heard me speak will say that this is one of the most important things, and especially in terms of balance and social and physical well-being, is actually doing stuff we love, which we can call filling our cup. So quite often this comes with an element of guilt. So especially women, we don't prioritise our own mental and physical wellness or the things that we love and enjoy. But what I do find is we have some options here. Ideally, we're going to get rid of this. And don't get me wrong, I made the comment around sitting on the corner of the couch watching a TV show that you didn't enjoy. If the 9 a.m. news or the morning show with a hot cup of coffee is your thing and you absolutely love it and you look forward to it, it isn't actually wastage. That firmly fits in here, okay? If anything that you, be careful what we're qualifying wastage. That trip to town to pick up a part, or the trip to, sitting around the pool for swimming lessons, is not wastage, even though it's not necessarily where you'd prefer if you had a choice. It's in line with a broader goal or value. So let me clarify that. But also we need to make time. If we get rid of the wastage, then the rest of the session, we're going to talk about improving our productivity and efficiency and driving that through the roof, which takes us, instead of taking 50 hours to do something, we can do it in 30. And then we need to make sure it's actually not selfish, it's smart to make sure that we have enough left in our tank, physically and mentally, to, I guess, live a fulfilled and enjoyable life. Because if we are all in this space, especially even if you are kicking goals, and we're not all great at practicing what we preach, I can promise you, but we liken it to the stress, to subcritical pressure on a rubber band over a long period of time. And look, we may well be kicking goals, but that pouring back into your cup or your bucket takes that slight bit of pressure off that band periodically and allows us to regroup and go again. And what we see is high functioning men and women in business, in the community, where they have been operating at a really high level. And it's just been that subcritical stress or pressure over a very long period of time. And no one saw it coming, but the band snapped. Has anyone ever seen that, been part of that? And I know regional Australia has had a really tough few years. I'm going to say that while COVID has affected maybe our city cousins, we have been greatly affected by drought and bushfire and other means out of our control for the last 5 or 6 years, we've had our COVID. We came into COVID really, really, really exhausted and spent. So that's possibly for me around acknowledging at this point, it's one of the most important messages I'll give. While we're looking to drive productivity, if we get to where we're going, what's left at the end? And especially if you're caring for someone other than yourself, if you might be in a relationship, you might be caring for a parent, a child, this stuff is so critically important because you can't pour from an empty cup. Okay, so I'm going to say at this point, absolutely get rid of this. Don't make excuses around it, get rid of it. If you love it, if you love scrolling your phone, keep scrolling it. But if you can't afford to enjoy a cup of coffee with a friend or go and have a hit of golf with a mate or whatever it might be, but then you find yourself that you're wasting time doing this, stop doing it and start doing it that. So stop the wastage and pour it out. And I'm not saying it's about your phone. I'm asking you what it is that where you're spending, where you're wasting time, and stop that. Prioritize this and plan for this, and then drive your efficiency through the roof, which is what we're going to talk about for the next little while. Anyone have any questions or comments on that stuff? So anyone want to argue that we can spend our time any other way than those three? We have to allow a little bit of scope in those categories. So I can argue that, you know, that something mightn't be wastage. It might be if you love it. If you love it, we have to be careful calling it wastage. If you don't love it and it seems wasted, but it's part of it's one of the crap bits to get to the bigger goal, it's not wastage. It's number one. Okay. If you think about it now, when we're talking about spreading ourselves too thin, I used to, and the people who've done it with me before, I talk about glass and rubber balls, where in life there's some glass balls that we have to keep in the air. What are we juggling? Okay, and we love the juggling act. The rubber balls, if we drop, they bounce. Someone else can pick them up. We can scoop them up later. I've actually gravitated, team, to, I like the plate spinning act, because I think that it's not as dramatic as a drop ball. It's a teetering plate. So say, for example, of all the different parts of my life, I liken them to spinning plates, and periodically they all need a bit of a spin. And sometimes you might be spinning and one's just humming, but it was at the cost of something else. Say you've been preparing a paper and it was a big job, or, you know, your harvest and everything is riding on that plate. So the rest, it's just a complete disregard for the rest. And then you get to the end, you go, righto, I've got a plate here that's a little bit wobbly and you have to give it a spin. Okay, because it's rarely as dramatic as, oh, bam, like one miss and the plate's gone. They teeter for a while. My question here is, do you have any plates in your spinning act that shouldn't be there? If you're in a position because no one else wanted it, if you're in a position out of history and legacy, if you're in a position that isn't necessarily in line with your goals and values, and don't get me wrong, you might not feel at Coles because your ultimate goal is to own an investment property or to educate your kids, and that's the means to the end. That's the crap bit to get the goal done. Okay, but if you find yourself, if you're in a community group, you don't love it, it's not in line with your goals and values, and if you're really wound it back, you can consider it to be a bit of a waste. Stop doing it. Let's say, and if you drop that ball and no one picks it up, that's actually not your issue. Okay, don't get me wrong. If you end up the netball canteen convener, it was my turn. Okay, people are like, oh, I only took the job because no one else wanted it. I know, I didn't want it either, but it was in line with my goals and values of having a healthy family. That makes sense. Yeah, look, absolutely. Bryony's made the comment in the chat box that being comfortable filling your cup, we see it as selfish. But when we get rid of this, okay, this wastage, and then also find a way to improve our productivity, which is where we're headed, this becomes a lot easier. The other thing is this doesn't happen unless we plan for it. You know, we wait till we get to the bottom of our to-do list and reward ourselves with something that we enjoy doing. The other thing is our productivity will go through the roof if our mental and physical well-being is in check. We can't operate at our peak if we're not in peak condition. Okay. And look, this is about allocating time. It's smart to allocate time for wellness. If you do not allocate time for wellness, I'm talking physical and mental wellness, you need to allow time for illness, because that's where you're going to find yourself. So Bryony, my message to you and anyone else who isn't brave enough to write exactly what you wrote, which is possibly, I'm going to say 75% of the group, is it is smart, not selfish. And it is a real adjustment. And sometimes it's about the communication piece. People don't mind if they know. And I know, I love the women that I say, oh yeah, I play bridge on a Tuesday. You know, can we make, no, I play bridge on a Tuesday. Part of the plan. It's communicated, accepted. I find less guilt. Yes, awesome, Sal. And that's what we're going to talk about is making sure that there's less guilt if it's rather than, oh, I just took a guilty, you know, coffee with it. Plan it, but also plan it, improve your efficiency in the lead up. I can promise you, I delivered a webinar on this topic a few weeks ago, and it was all women. And I said to the group, explain to me where you can find 2 hours in the week. There's 168 hours, team. If you cannot find 2 to do something for yourself, there's something amiss. There's too many plates. We're saying, and I think that's coming back and finishing up that conversation about what to say yes and no to. I have a really strong relationship with my values, a really strong sense of the things that are really critically important to me. And so I actually don't mind saying no. And I don't say no apologetically. Oh, I'm so sorry, not at the moment. That gives people hope. Go back, Fing will do it, ask her again. Wear her down. So I say, oh, hey, thank you so much for the opportunity, but yeah, no, not now. It's a no, it's a hard no from me, because in my mind, I know exactly where I need to put my time to get the stuff done. And don't get me wrong, if it is in line with my values, I'll always prioritize it. If someone says to you, oh yeah, coffee sounds great, sorry, I don't have time, it means that you're not a high enough priority, because I can promise you that the things that even if you don't do a great job managing your time, the things that are critically important, we always find time for. Okay, so have a think about the things you do not have time for. Okay, and stop making excuses because they're not a high enough priority. 10 years on the farm, I still struggle losing time. Yeah, it's really hard. 2 hours get gobbled up. Yep, reality of regional and remote. Cass, and it is a tricky one. And the other thing is we can't safely recommend that we do anything else while we're there. We can't even really, well, service doesn't allow us to make phone calls, and ideally we shouldn't be on the phone in the car. So absolutely. But if, yeah, listening to podcasts and learning is awesome. Yeah, some great stuff. I know that we're going to actually share some really good stuff. Keep an eye on the chat box, team. There's some really good stuff coming through here. So, like if you want to run a business effectively and manage a budget, manage your numbers and make money, you create a budget. If you did want to improve your health, you might count your steps, you might monitor your heart rate, you might count calories or carbs. In reality, and I made the comment before, we cannot manage what we haven't measured. So it's at this point that I encourage you to get a real handle on where your 168 hours are currently spent, and for better or worse. So it might be that, wow, I didn't realise I was giving 14 hours a week to a community group because you couldn't get rid of the job. Or I didn't realise that I was 20 hours a week in the car. Okay. Or, hey, I didn't actually realise it only takes 3 minutes to hang out a load of washing. Okay. Have a think about where that 168 hours is going. And that's where, once we have really got a handle on the measurement, we can have a think about where the wastage is. And like if you are writing a food diary, if anyone's ever done that before, you won't put the extra Tim Tam in your mouth because you've got to write it in the book. Okay, so be really conscious that if you do go down the path of measuring your time, the week that you allocate to measure, and be careful waiting to choose a perfect week because they don't exist. Okay, no week is perfect. Rarely we have the privilege or luxury or bore of a Groundhog Day. So waiting, like, I won't do it this week because I've got to go to Tamworth, or I won't do it next week because I've got visitors. That's life. Okay, get a handle on what you're, even with the erratic nature, where we're spending our time. The other thing is at this point is have a think at your current status. If your goals and values are allocated for and reflected. So say, for example, might be community is important to you, didn't make your matrix. There's not one thing. It might be that health and fitness didn't make the list. How important is your family to it? Did it make your list? Okay. But also then, at what point did you take time to categorically fill your cup? Meaningful connections, fostering relationships, sleep and rest. Okay, nutrition, fitness, mental health and physical well-being, all of those things that allow us to function at our peak, were they planned for and were they prioritised? Okay, because once we've done that and really decided, right, this is where we can make the wins, this is where we can make the gains, I can't do anything with that day, I can't do anything with the mornings, I can't do anything with this, that's where we can have a look at creating a plan and improving our efficiency. We've just been talking for an hour. I don't know if it's gone quick for you, but holy dooly. I want to take a break for 3 minutes. I'm going to turn my video off. I'm still going to be here. I just want, if anyone needs a personal break, I'm going to stop talking for 3 minutes. It's going to be hard, actually. But I really want you throughout this time, if you don't need a personal break, is I want you to do this bottom question. So the question asks, what plates do you currently have spinning in your life? If you were to guess what portion of your time you're spending them, and some of it might be easy. It might be sleep, you could work it out, don't work it out a percentage, work it out hours, 50 hours, work 60 hours, exercise half an hour every morning, 2.5 hours. Are you with me? So fill this in as well as you can. And look, this is just going to be an indication, and chances are it'll be what you want it to be, not what it really is. But then I'm also interested is, are your goals and values and the things that are critically important to you reflected in the percentage of the time you're spending doing those activities? And it might be that you had a big week on the kindy committee, or you, attended a couple. Think about all the things that you're doing in your life, all the plates you're spinning, all the balls you're juggling, whatever analogy you want to use, and ask yourself, what percentage of that time was spent in here? Okay, and what percentage is out here? And this is the nicest way for us to have a look at a realignment back in line with the things that are important to us, but also of the things that we need to say no to, the dead wood we need to cut out, but also righto, my expectations are completely unrealistic. I have over allocated myself to my eyeballs, and there's a few things that have to go, because at the moment, the things that are important to me by way of my values are not reflected, and the balance that I currently have is not sustainable. Can I get you to take, let's say 3 minutes, and we'll come back if anyone wants to walk away, make a quick cup of tea. We'll come back in 3-4 minutes and have a bit of reflection. While you're, if you don't want to leave, jot some of these notes in your book saying, yeah, I've got it on track, or holy dooly, this, the concept of measurement. We're all smart people here, team. If we don't get this stuff right, we can't get the next step right. So we're coming back to talk about, for 1 whole hour, improving the efficiency of the way we lay bricks, the 168 that are readily available to us. Share that, or if not, share with me in the chat box over the next 3 to 5 minutes something you take home so far out of the first hour. We'll see you in a couple of minutes. How do we go? Rightio. Let's get moving. Anyone have any thoughts or comments to share on that stuff? No, all gone quiet. Busy writing, walked away, left, still there. Okay, let's have a bit of a chat about how we can go about improving our efficiency. So once we have that really strong handle on where we're spending our time, the best way we have to make time or find time is by improving the efficiency of the productive hours that are available to us. So we've gotten rid of the wastage, we've prioritised and planned some of that cup filling, guilt-free things that we love, and which does include that mental and physical well-being side of the deal. If we really do want to manage time efficiently, the first thing we do need to do is actually have a good long hard look at ourselves and a bit of a yarn to ourselves. So actually have a chat to yourself and acknowledge that managing your time really is about managing ourselves. So to that end, some of my tips here are drop the labels. So there'd be anyone game enough to put their hand up in the chat box and say they're always the one in their group that is the late one. Anyone? Surely there's 25 people on. There'd be someone who is categorically known in their group of friends or their social circle as being late. And look, I'm going to put my hand up for some of my friends who are always the late ones. What happens with a label, whether it's that of being unorganised, of being messy, of being a fussy child, if the naughty child, and now Cassie's going to blame someone else. Cassie, you cannot blame someone else. If we label ourselves in a certain way, it gives us permission to behave that way, consciously or subconsciously. So Jackie Hemming, I love your work. Thanks for your honesty. Sometimes, and I'm not saying it's always the way, Trish, good job. I'm not saying it's always the way. But sometimes you go, oh, you know, it starts at 11, but they know I'm always going to be late, so I'll roll in at 20 past 11. Is that fair? Similarly, if you find yourself justifying that you're the messy one, you're known to be the messy one, why would you clean your house? No different. I've got a fussy child that comes to the table and says, Mum, what's for tea? Oh, you know I'm not going to eat that. I'm the fussy one. Because we have consistently, since the day he was born, called him fussy. And what he's doing is living up to that behaviour. Similarly, we live up to any behaviour around procrastination, it gives us permission. Like, I'll bugger around here for a few minutes because I procrastinate. You'll be surprised how powerful the conversations we have with ourselves, and even it might be the conversations you have with your team. If you've got someone that you joke about always being late. So when I say drop the label, drop the behaviour. The soft skills that we talk about by way of time management, communication, anything that we have created a business in helping people improve can be learned just as quickly as you can learn to take a good photo, cook a meal, ice a cake, drive a tractor. Okay, but it takes that acknowledgement that you want to change, and it takes the maturity to put the new behaviour in place. So anyone, Trish, if I'm attending, yes. So not Stacey, but Stacey's husband, and Cass is going to blame her husband. The first time the late person arrives on time, someone's probably going to ask if they wet the bed. Okay? But at that point, eventually they'll forget and like, oh, she used to be late, she's not anymore. And then eventually you'll just be part of the non-late crew. But if you don't mind being late, you'll always allow yourself to be late. I'm not saying change it if you like it. Change it if you don't. The other thing is the excuses. I'm not a morning person. Could you try being a morning person? I'm not a night person. Chances are you can't be both. We'll talk about that in a minute. But have a think about the excuses that you apply to yourself that allow you permission to not spend your 168 hours the way you'd like to. Oh, it's different for her because, or it's different for him because, or it's all right for him because. Stop with the excuses. Usually we love finding a reason why we don't need to change our behaviour. There's an element of maturity in improving this. If you're here to improve your time management, have a look and a yarn to yourself. But then also be willing to do something different, try something differently. But also the comparison. Everyone's in their own lane. The way that I do things versus the way you do things versus the way someone else does things are all going to be different, okay? So worry about your own race, run your own race, and try and be a better version of yourself tomorrow than you were today. Okay, because you're going to be better at something else than someone else is, and vice versa. But also getting that clarity back in your life, the things that are important, know what's important, but don't negotiate them. I love the people when, you know, the bridge player, but also some of the girls in our team are absolute, I'd say, you know, exercise freaks. If you ask them to do something at the time when they're scheduled to exercise, they don't negotiate that. They keep what's front and center and they work the rest around it. We do usually have a lot more autonomy over our time than we give ourselves credit for. And I think also, even if we don't have a lot of autonomy in our work time, our personal time, and where we're talking about that balance, there is autonomy. The other thing with autonomy in our work time, if someone, quite often, well, good businesses, we're talking about culture and workforce planning tomorrow, but good businesses focus on outcomes rather than hours. So if you've got good people and the right jobs, they should have an element of autonomy that if they want to do something at a certain time in a certain way, depending on the process, that flexibility could be afforded, and you'll actually improve someone's productivity and efficiency. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute, relevant to when you strike, when your energy levels and your cognitive ability is at its highest. Say for me, I'm a categorical morning person. You'll get an email from a crazy hour from me at a crazy hour in the morning, but I don't strike well at night. I also know that detail is not necessarily my strong point. Is that a label? Absolutely, it's a label that I wear for myself. So if I have to do something that's detail focused, I promise you I don't do it at night. And as a result, it takes half as long. Make sense? So understanding what your priorities are, but then creating that plan, and that's what we're going to talk about, is planning your year, your month, your week, and your day is the next 45 minutes of this session. After I talk about discipline over motivation, what we wait for is to feel in a certain way, to act in a certain way. We wait to be motivated. Oh, I was supposed to mulch the garden. I didn't feel like it. I was supposed to do my best. I didn't feel like it. I was supposed to do performance reviews with the team. I was supposed to ring such and such. I didn't feel like it. I wasn't motivated. I can promise you now, if you wait for motivation, that sucker will let you down every day of the week. Every time you will let you down. What we need to rely on is creation of a plan that's in line with our goals and values. So it really resonates with it. It sits well with us. If we got to the end of the plan, we'd feel great. There'd be a little bit of balance in there, probably hopefully a little bit of something we love, but we would have got done the productive tasks we required in an efficient fashion, okay? If we have the plan in place and the plan's effective, forget the motivation. Rely on discipline to follow the plan. Does that make sense? So the concept of discipline is really risky because we can't rely on it. But the concept of motivation is really risky because we can't rely on it. If you think about an Olympic swimmer, I'm pretty confident, and you think about those poor suckers, they're every 4 years they get a bit of a gig. Maybe the Pan Pacs, whatever other swimming, but there's not every weekend they're getting it, up in the limelight. If you think about it, not only do they have a goal that someone else set for them typically, what they do have very clearly is the strategy. And the reason that they end up reaching their goal is because the strategy is smart, but they have the discipline. They don't wake up every morning and ask, should I get up? Should I go training? They take the if out and put a when in there. Okay, so they don't rely on being motivated. They rely on discipline. Discipline creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation. And then so you feel great and you get to where you're going to get. And if you think about it, this is all sounding very like controlled and clunky. But in this plan, we've got things we love, we've got things that are kicking our goals, we've got things that are in line with our values. So at the end of the day, life's going to be pretty good if we follow the plan. Does that make sense? And if you get to the end of the week and you followed the plan and life sucks, there was something wrong with the plan. Okay. So then once we have got this plan, this is where we can really end up a bit sort of tricky and really put the cogs in the right place and increase that efficiency. Does anyone have any questions or comments on that stuff? I love that stuff. I love that mindset, labels, that conversation we have. And there's some research done that it only takes 3 seconds to change your mind for good or bad. So if your alarm goes off, don't lie there for 3 seconds because you will change your mind. Okay, or it'll give you that space to change your mind. Follow the plan. You wouldn't have set the alarm unless it was in line with the plan. Okay, don't worry about motivation, focus on the discipline. Let's have a talk about planning. I love planning. I have people ask me, geez, how much time do you spend planning? You know what, team? Every minute that I spend planning, which isn't actually that many minutes, I get back. Time and time and time again. I get back through improved efficiency. I get back through the prioritization of the things I love. I get back through having my cake and eating it too. And you know what? People, I often get asked, and I'm sure there's a lot of people on the line who wear multiple hats and do lots of things and say, oh, I don't know how you do it. I do. I have a plan. I stick to the plan. And you know what? At the end of the day, we get to where we need to be. And it's not like there's no, and don't get me wrong, this week's a bit crazy. But at the end of the day, we need to have a plan. So I want to talk for the next little while around each stage of planning. We do need to plan our year. And this is where, you know, those short and long-term goals, maybe your long-term goal is out 5 to 10 years. Your short-term goal might be 12 months. So this is where you'd make sure, and there's something cathartic about flicking the calendar year and finding ourselves in January. Let's be thankful that 2020 is on its way out, team. Bring it home strong, but look forward to making sure that even if the environment that we're finding ourselves in doesn't change greatly, that we're using the resources that are available to us and the restrictions that are available to us. Cass, I'm gonna answer that. Work out what it is that you want 2021 to be, where I feel like this year's a write-off. So let's pretend that we're in about November, like we nearly are, late November, early December, Christmas trees are up. Work out what it is that you want 2021 to look like if it was a rip-roaring success, okay? How do you work that out? You understand what other previous successful years looked like, and also understand the things that didn't work. And what is it that you can change? Set some goals. Set some goals that are realistic, that are smart. Make sure that they're in line with your values. Like check that all the plates that need to be spinning at a higher level at the end of the year, are they all still going to be in place? Are there any plates that need to be ditched? Is there a new plate that you need to add to the mix? You've last child's just left home, just heading into retirement, just started a new job and want to work towards, I don't know, an investment property, whatever it might be that you're currently working towards. Understand from a habitual perspective, and I could have talked for a week about habits and habit stacking. Google that, that's cool. Habit stacking and what habits that you currently have that will get you to where you need to be, but what also needs to change? What labels need to be dropped? What are some of the things that you need to do through growth and maturity to get to the end of the year in advance, like fast forward and get there at the end of the year and decide what it is that your year you would like it to look like. Be really careful if the goals that you're setting and let's talk about New Year's resolutions. Are they in line with your values? Are they your goals, or are they imposed by society? If I was to ask majority of the women in their 30s and 40s and 50s on the line what their New Year's resolutions were, could be, should be, would be, if you ask majority of the women, they're all the same. Maybe we need to lose weight, stop spending, maybe a little bit less coffee, a little bit more, less drinking, whatever it might be. At the end of the day, if you got to the end of the year, lost a bit of weight, spent a little bit less money, drank a little bit less alcohol, drank a little bit less coffee, what would your year look like? Would it have been a rip-roaring success? Maybe not. Because they're goals that are imposed on you by society. They're not ones that resonate with you. And that's why we get to February, we're still eating the same, we're still drinking the same, we're still spending the same, we're still ordering our daily coffee. Make sense? Choose goals that resonate with you. Forget the New Year's resolution, because that's what happens. If they really do resonate with you, you'll have that strategy, you would have reversed and engineered it, and you'll have the step that you have to do each month, each week, each day, and then, like Cass has asked, each hour, each quarter, each 10 minutes. And then I love this concept of the theme of the year. What is your theme? Which is going to be part of those guide rails. Like, is it consistency? Is it, I know last year my theme was more considered. So if I took on a client, if I took on a project, if I bought something, if I ate something, if I said yes to something, I wanted it to be a little bit more considered. Yeah. No, stop. A little bit more consideration, a little bit more thought. Is it balance? What is a word or a theme that you could use to populate your year and to use as a frame of reference for your year going forward? I think it can be really clever. Type it up, write it up, put it on a whiteboard in the office, make it really big and visual, put it as a sticky note on your computer screen. So when you are making, using your resources, so that's your time and your energy, maybe your money, that it is in line with that theme of the year. I'm not a great annual planner. I do love the little bit of a sit down and a powwow with my family and with my team to make sure we're all on the same track. But my annual plan is probably one is most loose. We might put in, bigger events and make sure that, if we've got a big period, a busy period, I always allocate. I do try and slightly structure my business around school holidays, given that family is a value of mine. That was a decision that I made, is to at least be mindful if I can avoid. So some of those sort of things, these are some of the things that we can do at an annual basis, is just make sure that what is it that you need to prioritise going forward to make the year that you want it to be. And then we get into managing and planning our month, and hopefully the goals that we set for the year will allow us to prioritise our months. And look, from a monthly perspective, and I don't have it in here, but there's a really clever tool that Joe Palmer put out. I am actually allowed to use it, so I might send you the reference. Julie, can you write that on my notes as well to send the reference to the C-suite? But basically looking at your month from a planning perspective. But for me, my month looks like a rolling master list. So I encourage a master list because we're going to talk about a to-do list, and planning your day, funnily enough, looks like a to-do list. And what happens is we find ourselves looking for a dumping ground to get rid of the white noise out of our head. So we end up with stuff on today's list that shouldn't be done today or doesn't need to be done today. So for me, a master list, which is pretty simple, I actually operate a couple of different master lists now, because I have one for my business where different projects have got dumping grounds of where I find something. These are actually paper-based. I'll show you an example of what we use. But what is it that your master list looks like? I'm not saying it needs to look like these categories, but you're like, oh, I'd love to hang that picture. I'd love to clean my skirting boards. I need to mulch the garden, but not today. But what happens is our brain only has the ability to remember 9 things. So what we worry that we're going to forget. So then we just keep churning it around. And then we end up finding, I just got to write it down. So we write it on today's list. And we're going to talk a lot about to-do lists in a minute. But depending on whether you're a list writer or not, you may be someone who has a never-ending list. And we talked about that mindfulness and mindset. That feeling of productivity, success, and satisfaction is never reached with a never-ending list. So I'm going to park that and come back to it. But a master list for me then becomes my dumping ground. It could be a whiteboard. It could be your notes in your phone. It could be an app. But somewhere where you dump stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be done today. And when I said that I run it for work, I now have my projects and clients. So each week, the idea of your master list is to populate your weekly list. And funnily enough, team, when we get talking about your weekly list populates your daily list. Funny that. So we're never forgetting anything. We're going to talk about scheduling a tiny bit separately, but what needs to be achieved for the month? What resources do you need? Is there a contractor you need to order in? Like if you're doing a renovation versus need something fixed in the office versus need a spray contractor. What projects need attention? What supplies and resources and personnel are required? Is it that, hey guys, I don't think you're taking leave this month, we're all on, versus, hey, it's a bit of a quieter month. So have a think about the workload. And if you're employed by someone, have that conversation with your boss. What is happening this month? Who's around? Who's away? What are the big ticket items and activities? Are there any looming deadlines? Again, I appreciate the demographic of this group is so broad that the examples are going to be irrelevant to some people, but being really conscious of the big ticket items to your business and your life, and making sure that you're planning those in advance. Obviously, the next stage is planning your week. If you do have autonomy over your time, I want to go back to that concept of really putting some structure back in place. We pride ourselves on not having structure in our week, and structure creates efficiency. So remember, the only way we're finding and making time at this point is through efficiency, okay? And then structure creates that efficiency. So if you have full autonomy, so those of us who can pick and choose when they do what they do, okay? They can schedule whenever they want. They're not waiting. They're not told they have to be at work at 7, be lunch at 12 and home at 5. But even if you have that structure, still if you have that structure in place imposed by someone else, but then do you have any autonomy in that time? And we're going to talk in a minute about deep and shallow work and what that means. And we are going to get really technical in this time management efficiency stuff, which I know is why you signed up. But making sure week in advance we have a handle on clear deadlines, any scheduled appointments, and what are the priorities, what are the big ticket items. And then start blocking out time for these tasks. When I say blocking out time, there's a lot of work done in blocking, a lot of efficiency gained in blocking like tasks. That's why if someone does a pay run, they don't pay Kate on Monday and Joe on Tuesday and Bob on Wednesday. They do all the pays in a run. Treat all of your activities like a pay run. So what is it that, I know I spoke to a lady in a coaching session this week, and she said, I do my invoices every day. I was like, why don't you do them once a week? Because the time to take that, open the program and get the invoices, whatever it might be, do them once a week. So blocking any like task can really create an efficiency, and the opening and closing of an activity, whether it's a program, the mindset, that whatever it is to get that job done, you'll be surprised, those tiny little wins. We're only looking here, team, at finding 5-minute increments of time. Okay, so every time we can find 5 minutes, let's bolt them together. And when I said about finding the 2 hours, I reckon we could find 20 hours, okay, through this efficiency. Cass, the master list is the absolute requirement. We need somewhere to dump it, because otherwise we dump it. We're going to talk about that never-ending list and the feeling of dissatisfaction that creates for us. The other thing about planning your week, and it's my favourite topic, I know a lot of people have heard me talk about this, but when we do it, what happens when we plan our week on a Sunday, which a lot of people do? Well, I'm going to talk about turn on a positive. What we need to do is start planning our week on a Friday for a number of reasons. Firstly, Friday afternoon particularly is a very unproductive time. There we go, in business and life. Okay, I want to be off Friday afternoon. I'm going to do it Friday morning while I'm fresh, because again, I made the comment that I'm a morning person. So my ability to think and concentrate in the morning is really high. The other thing with Sunday night is, if you want to make an appointment with your accountant, ring someone that's, might in a professional situation where you don't want to bother them on the weekend, make a hair appointment. You can't do that on a Sunday night. And so then you think, oh, hopefully I can do that, but I can't plan Tuesday until I've seen if I can get that appointment in there. But Friday, they're usually available to confirm those appointments. The other thing is talking about engaging someone else. The level of respect that is perceived, even though it's not many business hours difference, is if you ring a contractor or an electrician, a hairdresser on a Friday versus a Monday morning trying to get an appointment that week, at least we're talking next week. Okay, so the chance of them being available is higher too. Maybe not being available, but the perception of their ability to help you out is high. Same with your team, communicating to them what's on next week versus, hey, this is what we've got on this week. The other thing is it allows us to start Monday on the right foot. So we go in Monday morning and there's no, okay, where do we start, team? We're on. My other big one, and I know this has been a savior for me, and I do really subscribe to the importance of balance. And if you are fully self-employed, full autonomy, I would love to think the weekend still looks slightly different. Even if you're in a farming business, whatever your business is, make sure every day is not a Wednesday. So the weekend hopefully has a slightly different tone. Is it that that's where you put something you love? Is it family time? Whatever it might be. But in the instance that the week in advance is completely unrealistic, irrational, not going to happen, we've got 48 hours up our sleeve to do something about it. So it might be bugger it. Can't get through that list next week. I'm going to dig deep. A couple of hours on Saturday. It made me feel so much better. The other thing is, if you get Friday out of the way and you've got the plan, your anxiety levels and the pressure off that rubber band as you roll into the weekend to enjoy a little bit of increased balance is higher. You can go in with a sense of satisfaction that the next week is under control. Okay. So for me, planning my week, absolutely, it's about scheduling and blocking out the key important things that I'm going to achieve each day by way of the schedule. And then if there's any like big ticket, deep work tasks, and I'm going to talk about what that means, that's what I do. No, I don't ever necessarily put the 15-minute, 5-minute jobs. And that's a bit in line with your question, Cass. I'm going to talk about that with planning your day in my weekly planner. But if I can look at my week at a snapshot, and I can show you, she's pretty wild, but my week at a snapshot looks like that. So just look at my handwriting really quickly, have a quick look at what it is. And then if someone asks me what I'm up to, social or professional, this is when I'm available. Okay. But doing it Friday afternoon is probably the take home. Make a note of that. Is plan your week on a Friday afternoon. Any questions or comments about that? Anyone thinking that those two levels of planning are useful? I'm going to say now, planning my week, I'm usually doing it a bit like as of I already have something next Tuesday, I've started to write it in next Tuesday's list. So it's not a matter of don't touch it. It's usually, and it's the same when we talk about planning a day, my daily to-do lists are written all written in advance as required, if that makes sense. Definitely, yeah, the value of planning your month, just a quick glance over the top, but then planning your week to make sure that we're not being unreliable. The other thing with planning your week, I'm a huge, I'm a digital scheduler. So while people use a diary, I use an app, which I could nearly do a Daniel's direct thing for this thing. It's called iCalendar. And basically with my phone, because it is always on me, I want to be able to say, just a minute, I'll double check if I can make the commitment. I don't want to have to come home and look at the list on the fridge or the back of the toilet door or my desk planner or even Outlook. So I completely keep separately my planner and my schedule, which I know is a bit clunky. Anyone who uses a diary very well, they've got the whole thing usually in one hit. So if that works, absolutely don't change it. But if you quite like a digital app to like calendar, really all it does, that iCalendar, it does cost you the cost of a cup of coffee, don't complain to me, is the words show up and I can color code it. I'm a really visual person. So I do like iCalendar, and I can also export it and share it with someone else too, which is important to me. So have a think about the functions that are important in your planner, and it might be that you in your scheduler and use that. So just a note on that. Let's talk about planning your day. Who writes a to-do list? I'm hoping everyone, 27 people write a to-do list. If you don't, I encourage you to start. If you hate them, it's probably because you haven't done them well. I want to give you some tools on how to do them well. Yeah, great. So occasionally, not often. Let's, yes, I love a to-do list. Used to, Krisha, I'm going to start again. I think what happens with a to-do list, and especially for women, it drives your husband crazy, Joe. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a cute fundamental story about the difference between men and women. Can anyone put in the chat box if they have a husband that gets to the end of the day, and especially if they've, hopefully most of your husbands get to the end of the day, but especially if they're a farming husband, gets to the end of the day and writes in a diary at the end of every day. There'd be a few there. Writes in the diary at the end of the day. Yep. Oh my God, yep. I tell you what's happened. Your husband, oh my God, look at them. We've never seen so many yeses. Your husband gets to the end of every day. He writes down exactly what he achieved. He didn't write down what he was supposed to achieve. he pats himself on the back, he celebrates his productivity, and he usually cathartically collects these said diaries and stores them in a bookshelf. And he could go back and he could find the name of the guy that he bought the work dog from. And he could find the day that he joined those heifers. And he could find when they planted in 87. Is this true? Yes, 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 yes. Can I ask at that point then, if there's anyone who has said that their husband does this, if they get up in the morning or the night before, busily scratch a list, get to the end of the day, they've got the list, they've written something on it that they didn't get to, because something on it that wasn't on it because it's really the only thing they've got to do, and they scribble that off, make themselves feel a bit better, and they go, shit, 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 there's still a lot of things on that list. They then start writing tomorrow's list, which really usually looks like finish today's list, but then the list, which is on a scrap of paper, goes in the bin. Is that anyone? I'm thinking that it's going to be some. We need to act more like blokes. So the blokes on the line, we need to act more like you. What blokes do is they focus on their productivity and they get more of it. They celebrate their productivity. Okay? What women do is we focus on the things we didn't get to and we feel like crap. Okay? We feel like even though we never stopped. And especially if you didn't get to the bottom of the list and you added a coffee in there, or you added, yeah, good, I'm glad, Andrea, it's not anymore. Or if you added that you caught up with a girlfriend or went to a yoga, and then you go, yeah, see, that's what happens when you go to yoga. That's how we make ourselves feel. So the other thing we're doing is we're not writing lists that are fair, that are reasonable, that are realistic, or that are achievable. So what we need to do is go back to the master list. So your to-do list is not a dumping ground, okay? If it is not going to be done today, do not put it on today's list. Also, because we've measured our time, we know that we've just put 26 hours on our list. So stop putting 26 hours on our list. Start putting the things that need to be done that day. The other thing is, and this is where it comes to, if you've got a notebook or a diary, if it's not today's job, flick over. If it's Wednesday's job, put it on Wednesday. Okay? So then you're not looking at it every day, just so you don't forget that you need to do it on Wednesday. Write it on Wednesday's list. The other, which blokes do a fair bit of too, don't put things on that list that are not need to be done that day or not achievable to be done that day. And that lends towards that philosophy of chunking down the tasks. So what we do is we put bookwork on it. We put clean the house. And then we get to the end of the day, we're like, oh, sort of. Oh, can I cross that off? Or better not. It's a bit generous if I cross it off. Print invoices. Code bath. Tidy toy room. Empty dishwasher. Be a bit kinder to ourselves. Okay? And then we get to the end of the day and go, yeah, great. Boom, boom, boom. Did those jobs. Because if the job in itself is never ending, we don't want that same job on every list. We want the component of that job. Then once we have understood what's on our list, the concept of eating the frog, which everyone who's ever been on a program with me knows I love it. It's that concept of doing the worst job first, because it creates, we're talking about motivation. And actually, you're never motivated to eat the frog. It is the mankiest job on the list. Usually, the longer you leave it, the mankier it gets. If you get in and eat it first, nothing on your list is going to be as bad. And anyone who I've said that to, who's gone away and do it, I get a weekly message. Daily's a bit rich, weekly's not enough, saying, guess what? I ate a frog and it felt great. Because what happens is the frog is rarely as revolting as we thought it was going to be, for a start. And once it's gone, it gives us that momentum to do our, to keep going with the list. The other thing, and this is one of the, it depends how, I want to say mature you are in this planning and productivity space, but the concept of deep and shallow work, which I have referred to a couple of times, has fundamentally changed how I do business. It has changed my profitability. It has changed my productivity. It has changed the things I can commit to by really understanding where, when and how we work. And what we do what is called, and again, Julie, I can send the link, what we call a chronotype test, which is really basic, but basically tells you if you're a day, a morning, a night, or a middle person. And what it made me realise is that I was categorically a morning person, and I'm talking a really early morning person. And I was finding myself not utilizing the time when when I say when I'm a morning person, it's when my brain's functioning. So at its absolute best. And then what I'd find is I would schedule appointments at that time. I would have meetings at that time. I would stuff around domestically at that time. And it would always be at the cost of my productive deep work tasks. So once you get a real handle on when you are at your cognitively best, which most of you would know, 75% of the population are morning people, okay? Then we can have that, we talked about putting that schedule in place and that plan. Now I am insanely protective of my mornings, because that, talk about create efficiencies. What I can get done in 3 hours in the mornings when I'm at my best would normally take me 6 or 7 hours in the afternoons. So if there is a meeting, it now goes in the afternoon. If it is a hair appointment, if it is a lunch date, whatever I can push to the afternoon and categorically protect my best functioning time for me to do. And for me, a deep work task is things like, it might be writing, reports, whatever your deep work, you get the hard bits, the hard bits of your job that require you to focus and concentrate. Might be writing a new program. It might even be doing a quote, editing. I said I didn't have great attention to detail. So what happens when I try and edit a document at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when I've already said I'm not at my best? The quality of the job is crap. The other thing is it takes twice as long. So we're talking about finding time here, team. Here's the answer. By working out when you work best, having a plan and sticking to the plan, and not giving away your productive time. This is one of the big secrets. Then also during that time, avoiding distractions, knowing what your distractions are. Is it your phone? Is it the email notifications? What is it that you can do to, is it that you work in an office and you can say, hey, just letting you know, between 10 and 12, I will be offline. Is that okay? People don't mind if they know. Okay. And then the other thing that'll happen if you do take yourself offline, especially if a team answers to you, chances are by the time that 2 hours comes up, they will have answered the question themselves, Googled their own phone number. Anyone get asked what a phone number is? And because what happens is when we're trying to concentrate, those disruptions cost, you'd be surprised, it might be a 30-second question. It takes between 3 and 5 minutes to recover and get back in the hum. Okay, so really understand when you're at your best. Then have a think what your deep and shallow work tasks are. So what are the hard jobs in your role? And versus what are the little bits and bobs? The light tasks for me are the things I can do really effortlessly. It's replying to emails, might be booking, like scheduling. It might be following up an inquiry, whatever it could be. What would happen is I often come into the office and go, oh, there's 10 really cool, easy, quick jobs. I do the 10 jobs and go, oh, I've had a pretty good day. My list doesn't look too bad. Only taken me an hour to do the little jobs, but then I've got this crap job, the deep work, the one that, and I've lost some of my concentrating time. Does that make sense? Can people indicate whether they're on track, or whether you think I've lost my marbles with that stuff? That team, and I'm not saying you have to be office-based to make this work. Have a think about what it is. What is the stuff that gives you energy? And what is the stuff that drains your energy? When you have energy, do the energy draining things. When you don't have energy, do the things that give you energy. I love coaching calls, okay? Funny enough, I can talk for 2 hours I'm talking to myself, okay? And I'm still talking. I can do this at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't do a lot of coaching calls in the morning because I get energy from them. So when I've got energy, I don't need any energy. So as a result, when normally, if I would have put my coaching calls in there, my editing and stuff wouldn't have happened. Does that make sense? So this is where we're talking about efficiencies, and by working out, and then let's do a few things like batching together our tasks. So Bryony, night person. So I go to bed stupid early. Okay, I get up stupid early. If I have to do anything that requires me to concentrate, and maybe I've labelled myself a bit with this too, but I'm not great at night. So you're in a minority. 25% of people really do strike at night. But so in the mornings, you do the little sugar bit jobs, like just the little bits and bobs of jobs to get life done and whatever. You might use some of that time domestically. It might be that you get a haircut in the morning. and then use your afternoons productively. Have a think about what this information means to you. Cal Newport, if you like this stuff, is an expert, and the deep, shallow work stuff is his work. Fundamentally changes productivities of businesses and individuals is where it's at. Also, making sure we've got a system in place. And this is where we're going to talk about buying a bit of time, maybe. We're talking about bricklaying. We're going to talk about perfectionism, but also making sure we've got a system in place. So making sure that all of our resources and tools are at the ready. There's nothing worse than sitting down to do something, you print a cartridge out, or the contract isn't organised, or making sure that we're planned well enough in advance so everything that we need to do sort of falls into place. Understanding how long, we talked about measurement, but really understanding how long things take to do, for better or worse. So I know the lead auditor of the program's on the line. I do some auditing for a program, and I absolutely hated writing the reports. It used to take me hours and hours and hours, because I'd put them off and I'd wait for something to interrupt me, and I'd get up and smell the roses and make a cup of tea and whatever. One day I realised that I didn't love doing them. I loved the auditing process, hated the reports. And then I sat down. Do you know how long they take to do? Not 4 hours. If you sit down, you put your phone away, you concentrate, you actually do it with a little bit of enthusiasm and vigour, geez, they're quick to do. So there's an example of where you've allowed that procrastination, and not necessarily, but you do have to concentrate, not necessarily putting the right stuff in the right time, how it can really affect our efficiency. That makes sense? Some of the work that's been done in working from home, where people did have the control and didn't have the interruptions, the efficiencies have gone through the roof, because people are doing this sort of thing. Oh, I'll just hook in and do it. And they know when they hook in and do it and get it done, they can put a load of washing on, or they can go and walk their dog. But when you're in the office and you have the distractions and also no points, all I've got to do today. So looking at outcomes rather than hours is really can fundamentally change how we think. The other thing, if it's not something you love doing, focus on the snowball effect. Like, oh, I'm not going to, I'll use a domestic example. I'm not going to clean the kitchen. I'm just going to unpack the dishwasher. Just unpack the dishwasher. I might as well just repack it. Might as well just do the benches. But it might be, I'm not going to do my baths. I'm just going to open. So really understand and work out the value of kicking the can down the road and creating that momentum. Okay, because and also this is where we can reintroduce that concept of discipline. Like, I don't want to do my best today, but today it's on my list today. Okay. And then also really realizing the value of a short period of time. And I always have a giggle of myself. When I first left uni, I worked at the DPI, and I'd be like, I've got a meeting at 10, no point starting at 8:30, no point starting anything now. And then I became self-employed mother of 3, and I'd say, oh, that meeting's not till 10, it's only 9:45. I could do boop, 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 boop. So really understand what it is that we can do in a very short period of time can be really valuable. I've got clients that have a 5 and a 10-minute job list, which is really super cool. So when you find 5 minutes before, whatever it is that you've got to do, a commitment, you can actually grab one of those jobs. I always giggle I run a couple of programs for Tocal College, and I always start the webinars, open the program just to do a tech check 10 minutes early. And I feel really sad when people log in 10 minutes on time. I'm never late. I'm never early either. You don't need to be early, team. Don't be late. Any mug can be late, but don't be early. Steal that time. Don't log into a webinar 10 minutes before and sit there and gawk at the screen waiting for the little thing to open up. Find something to do. There'd be something you can do in 10 minutes. Once we've got this list, and so don't get me wrong, we're going to put things on the list that are achievable. We might be populating lists in advance. So say, for example, that was one list. I know you can't see it, but by the time I got to the next day, the list was sort of written over the period of a few days beforehand. Like if someone said, could you give me a call on Tuesday, or I'm going to book that on Wednesday, I'm going to do that on Friday. I'm just sort of populating that list. And before I finish work in the afternoons, I go through and add them, just top up and make sure that the day's tidy, it's realistic, like, ooh, I forgot about that. Yeah, right. And then I also know when I start the next day, I know where to start. And you might even put a little star beside the thing I'm going to start. Once we've got our list, it is about getting a handle on the priorities of it. And there are some things that just get in and do it. So that could be a frog. Is there anything that's periodically on your monthly, your weekly, or your daily list that shouldn't be there? And if you stop doing it, would anyone notice? Or is it your job? Is it strongly enough aligned to your values and your goals? Can you delete it? Like, have a think about that. Is there any deadwood in where you're giving your time, energy, and resources? The delegation piece. This is our real only opportunity to buy someone else's time. And if you think about it, anytime someone comes into our life or business and we pay them, whether it's an ironer, a cleaner, an admin person, a shop assistant, whatever it might be, we are buying their time. That's all we're doing. We're giving them 25, 30, 40, 50 bucks an hour to take 1 hour of their 168 and put it on our road, okay? So I always hear, oh, by the time I teach them, I might as well do it myself. A couple of things. The answer to that is no, if it's a repeatable task, a high frequency task. Absolutely, if it's a one-off, get in, do it yourself. But if it's a repeatable task, it is usually worth training someone, especially someone with the right skills. The other thing is, oh, yeah, I've taught someone to do it and they don't do it the way I want it done. If someone is doing something on your watch or on your paycheck and it's not the way you want it done, that's actually on you as much as it is on them. Retrain them. And also be careful, is it the process that's important or is it the outcome? And at this point, I'm going to challenge anyone with OCD in the room and say that, does it matter if the brick's a bit crooked? Anyone really? I'm looking at my chat box waiting for people to go, oh! Sometimes 80% is enough. I know, and I love this example, and it always rings true. Someone who might be a secretary of a committee and they've written the minutes and they were in a bit of a rush and it wasn't your best work and you didn't give it that final 8th read and you felt a bit bad and you sent it off and you turned up at the meeting, you might have had a little bit of, oh, I hope it's okay, and no one said anything. Because I can promise you that to the perfectionist in the team, the extra 20% you put on top, no one notices. And there are things in our life that need to be at 100%, and there are things that don't. If no one is going to notice the extra 20% of the effort, be really conscious putting it in. But also when we're delegating, I really challenge that sometimes 80% done is better than off my list, full stop. So I'm actually pretty down with 80% done. Again, if it's important that it's done in a certain way to a certain standard, I communicate that really clearly, saying, hey, this is really, really important. It needs to be spot on. And this is the steps I need to be able to demonstrate along the way to get to the end game. Make sense? Okay, so be really conscious if you're delegating to people and they're not doing it the way you're doing it, that's actually on you, and not fair if you're buying their time and then going and doing it again. That's actually not smart. There's nothing efficient about that whatsoever. And then the delay. I don't want to delay stuff to the point where it becomes urgent, but also there's some things we do weekly, we could do fortnightly. Some things we do every day, we could do every second day, and no one would notice. Okay, and the time it takes to do once a fortnight or once every second day is not actually twice. So this is where we talk about in life and business, things that about finding time and creating efficiencies. A little farmer at Cropper Creek told me this ABCDE and I loved it. He looks at his list every day and it's either ABCD, either he either absolutely has to do it. So they're the things he does first. He better do it. So they're the next things. He could do it if you got time. Things you just got to delegate. Things you just need to line through them. And I loved that. Anyone who's done any work with me, I love my planner. I used it. I can show you. I don't know where the box is, but there's a box of about 4 years of them hanging around here. And we actually, and I'm happy to, we've got a little discount at the end. If anyone likes the idea of those planning templates and doesn't currently have a planner that works, if you currently have a planner that works, forget about these crazy templates. But if you like the talk that I've mentioned today around, the things that are scheduled and then the things that are really important, making sure as well, and there's 5 or 6 pages of notes and instructions, which I think is some of the best value of the book around that sort of mindfulness, gratitude piece. Is there a little random act of kindness? Can you show some gratitude to someone? And making sure that we're really allocating and identifying the things that are important and putting them in the plan, so then your day looks like a success because you followed the plan. I'm interested to take 2 minutes before we do a quick wrap up around some of the things you could do to improve either your planning or your efficiency. And there's a couple of boxes there in your on the last page. Sorry, there was a blank page. Maybe I think you needed them for notes. But immediately, what is something you can do as a result? And I mentioned the concept of habit stacking. Be really careful of thinking, I'm going to do that. There is 27 people on this webinar. There could be 400 or 500 years experience on the webinar. A lot of those habits took a long time to create. Don't think you're going to ditch them overnight. Pick one thing that you liked and start doing it. And then when that becomes normal and the clunk has gone out of it, pick another thing. So I'm interested in a couple of things you can do immediately to improve your planning and then improve your efficiency as well. And while you're doing that, I'm going to give a bit of a wrap up. So some of my take-home messages, and I'm really conscious to hear what your take-home messages are. If you wanted to pop one of the things that you're going to put in place as a result of the 2 hours that you've given me today, for which I'm very grateful. And I really hope that it has been worth the investment of your time. I had a lady who I love very much attended a workshop, and then she said to her friend, you think you can't afford to go to that? You actually can't afford not to. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. She couldn't afford the time to come. And she said, you can't afford not to. I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, so by way of some take homes, understand why you do what you do. What are you trying to achieve? What are your visions? What are your values? And what are your goals? The why gives you the guide rails to where you put your resources. And when I say resources, I'm talking energy, time, and money. The thing is about, and I keep using the word energy, quite often we might give our time to something, but it doesn't get our best energy. And I find that as a mum is I'll get to the end of the day and yeah, absolutely, my kids get a few hours, but they didn't get the best of me. So making sure the most important things are getting the best of you. And that might be, it might be your work, it might be your family, it might be your relationship, whatever it is that is critically important. Make sure they are getting the best of your time, energy, and resources. Really acknowledge that you cannot manage your time. You can only manage yourself. The 168 hours are going to tick past and you have a choice of how you use them. Planning really is the key. Don't think, oh God, this is all getting a little bit full on. And every amount of time that you spend planning, if the plan is in line with your values and goals, the sense of fulfillment and achievement will be worth the investment. And also the investment, you will get it back tenfold. So don't think, oh, that took me 5 minutes to write that list. It's going to be worth it. You do need to have that bigger picture idea and get a plan of your year, but then also your month, your week, and your day. And obviously your annual plan will populate your monthly plan, will populate your yearly plan, which will populate your day. Then we need to prioritise the plan and stick to the bloody plan. Forget the motivation. It is going to let us down every time. Sale pool, master list is a great way to start. And look, just do those. That's a good start. Your master list and then a daily list, which is only for today. And it might be, you know, like start writing tomorrow's. If today's just too big, start writing tomorrow. Start writing Thursday. Start writing Fridays. And we'll protect. Yes, I love the concept of protecting your deep work time. And that's where you say, sorry, I'm unavailable from 9 till 12. They don't know that you don't have a meeting. Okay? It's actually smart. I'm going to get my cleaner back. Yes. I love that. And Reggie Buchanan, if it means that, you know, at the end of the day, sometimes when I look at my house, you know, wouldn't you give someone 50 or 60 bucks to make it all beautiful again? Awesome. Buy someone else's time. And if you think about it, if that's going to restore mental and physical, mental well-being, smart, not selfish. Okay. And I think it's easy. It rolls off my tongue because I talk about it every day. And I see my charter to convince men and women that this stuff is not to be riddled with guilt, because it shouldn't be. Look, I'm not here to offer a box of steak knives, or am I? We do have developed this planner. We use it every day, every week. Anyone who's ever done a workshop seen me flash it around before it was ever for sale. So I didn't decide overnight I could make a buck out of it. People just asked every day for it. And now we have a planner that we offer, which is really a month of to-do list. It's a little bit ritualistic. It has 4 or 5 pretty cool pages of instructions in the beginning, tips and tricks. We also have a free downloadable on our website, which will put you on our database for anything that's time management related. So that's the way to get on our database. It's 30 top tips, which is the things we've talked about today. It's a bit of a reminder. The planner, we've got a blokes and a women's version. Apparently not everyone likes pink roses like me. The other thing we've got, and so this, if you put 5 off in the checkout, there's a code there and you'll get a $5 discount. It's $29 and it's a downloadable PDF that you own forever and just print it out each month and it's happy days. If printing it out isn't for you, we are doing an annual version, which I'm really excited about. It's going to be really cool. Be by pre-order only, available shortly. And then we also, would you do a digital planner? So it's a PDF. So no, Luce, I'm conscious that people would like it to be printable. It's printable, but it's also it's printable, but it's becomes hard copy, which is not everyone's cup of tea. So unfortunately, it's not digital. I love the master list stuff. There's some good stuff coming through the chat box. The other thing which is really cool is if you like this stuff, we run a coaching boot camp. Our next round is in February. It's going to be great. We've had a few people through it in the past. It's series of recordings and workbooks, and really, instead of spending 5 minutes on these topics, we spend a few hours on them, and it's a really lovely investment to make sure 2021 is a hit. So if anything like that, we're calling it out, we're going to spring clean your life. That's our bit of a mantra for our 2021 program, which we're really excited about. And there's a few people on the line that have done it, which I'm really excited about. Reach out, touch base. We love this stuff that we do. And like I said, nothing qualifies me more than anyone else to do this stuff, but I saw the vulnerability and need and also interest. We had 50 people sign up for this webinar. So people are really, Reggie says that the boost can't, thank you very much. But that's the way that you can, we did have a bit of a power hour. The 5 and 10 minute jobs list. The power hour, we sold out. We offered a bit of a coaching program with purchase of the planner. But with that, I have taken, a bit remiss of me to run a time management workshop over time. I'm going to hand back to Jilly. By way of a formal wrap up, I'm definitely happy to stay on the line. Actually, no, I've got another webinar with Trish Winter, don't we? We're not staying in the line, Jilly. But if anyone has any questions, flick me an email and we can do our best. And as I go back to Jilly, I'm going to pop this slide up to, again, acknowledge the people that made this possible and particularly affordable for those who chose to dial in. Hey, Jilly, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Beck, and thank you to all of our participants today. We hope you thoroughly enjoyed. I've popped a link up in the chat box for the survey, and there will be a window pop up after if you could all take the time to complete that if you can. Thank you again, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, everyone.